Yo! So like I did with the first beta, I'm gonna give my full thoughts on the second phase of the beta now that it's finished. I'll just go through each change and what I think about it now that I've gone through it. To begin with, I want to talk about the XP quest turn-in buff. As a reminder, the Adventure Awaits buff now grants 40% increased experience from quest turn-ins, which was originally 25%. So how do I feel about this now? Looking back at myself leveling from 1 to 30 with the 25% version of the buff, it wasn't as fast as I was expecting. I'd imagine that was because I thought it was going to be around 1.25 times leveling speed or something like that. But I didn't really take into account the experience you get from killing mobs during quests and the experience you get from killing mobs in dungeons and the downtimes that you get when you're moving from place to place, getting consumables and doing your training in the world hubs and stuff. So in reality, the speed that people got up to level 30 in the first phase was roughly just a little faster than they normally would, but not a huge difference as we'd thought. So in the second phase of the beta, they upped it to 40%. And I would say it's not as much as a difference as you'd think. I would say it's not a huge increase as you'd think, I would say. It does look big on paper going from 0 to 25 to 40%, but in practice, most people got to 45 within 3 days playtime. I myself got to 44 and 88% within 3 days and 9 hours playtime. I'm not really continuing as I'm making the video. And I would say 1 to 45 journey is roughly half of the leveling in terms of time, so I would say from my assumption most people will likely get to 60 within 5 to 10 days playtime, which isn't really a huge difference from the original classic. Obviously a lot of people will be a lot faster than me and a lot faster than the people on the beta, as a lot of people like to speed run their way to 60, so there's a lot of people that will do it in less than 5 days, I would imagine. But the average player would still be around 5 to 10 days playtime, I'd imagine. So when I was leveling from 30 to 45, or 44 because I didn't finish off my 45, with the 40% increased version, I grinded mobs until I was at the point where I was supposed to be in the guide that I was up to, like that I was using to understand the buff change. So I wanted to get a fresh look on the guide really. And following it all the way to level 44, I still had to grind quite a lot of mobs in certain areas to catch up, and I really couldn't afford to skip too many quests, just like an original classic. So I would say this to me either shows that I have a terrible guide that I'm using to differentiate both of them, like both versions of original classic and this version, or it's most likely that the 40% turn-in buff isn't as huge as everyone thinks. It's not as huge as, like, it's so game-breaking that it's going to kill the game or something like that. I would say it's not really a huge difference. So in my opinion, this 40% buff to quest turn-ins isn't really a huge difference to be upset about in terms of the journey you do as you level. Overall, I would say I'm pleased with the XP quest turn-in. Um, I'd imagine people want more XP or less, but I find it alright because having this buff, it means that you still level alongside many people. That's one thing. You still level alongside many people. It's not too fast that it ruins your journey that most people like about leveling. It's not too slow to force you to do every quest you hate and only do mob grinds, for example. It's not like that. it's not too slow to worry about missing out on end game content because it's roughly like 5 to 10 days leveling. And I would say since it is a little bit faster, it does incentivize people to group up to do quests faster than even if they lose like some mob XP in the process. So it does help out in socializing as well and making it more of a group experience. Um, One thing I would say is I would hope that they don't increase it or decrease it further, as it would require more playtesting. And I know from a fact that most people would want to try out raiding at this point for the playtesting, but you know, we'll see. We'll see for the next phase. I haven't read the development notes yet. Um, On to the next change, the meeting stones. So as a reminder, meeting stones can now be used to summon appropriate level party members for the associate dungeons. Um, so to start off with, there's not really much I can say here that I haven't already said in the previous log. But to start off with, I would say I could say that although what I will say is that this helped when I was too far from the dungeon, and I offered to make my way, so I didn't feel like that I was just being lazy. And no matter what, most of the groups I was in was always saying just quest and we'll summon you there anyway. So most of the time it was just letting people just get a bit more friendlier when it came to the summoning. So that was kind of nice. And most of the time when we were in dungeons, someone would leave because, you know, they've got their own, like, important things to do. Sometimes they can't really commit to the full dungeon, so they have to leave. So getting a new person in is really easy now because you just go out and quickly summon him with the summoning stone. Yes, it's not as convenient as a warlock where you just go outside of the entrance straight away, but I would say it's really convenient for like a non-warlock group. Really, it's really nice. Um, so that means that there's literally no real downtime during the dungeons, and that helps when other people in your group don't really have much time to wait for new joiners to make their way. Overall, I think this is a valuable addition. Now, onto the one of the smallest changes, yet one of the biggest impacts of the beta, the PvP realm. As a reminder, the PvP realm was available during this patch, so there was now 2 realms, and I believe this was kind of a mistake to add this during a beta, as most people who was going to play Season of Mastery on launch won't be playing the beta to test it. So there's not a lot of people playing the beta compared to what they'll be playing on the actual launch. So there isn't really much of a populace on the beta to add another server. And I know people wanted a PvP realm, and I wanted them to have it too, alongside many other people who wanted them to have it. But finding groups for dungeons on just one realm was really difficult, since there's not a lot of people playing the beta in the first place. And then splitting them into 2 realms kind of just made that even worse. But overall, I'm happy that they made the PvPers happy about their new realm. Um, uh, but I would say part of me hopes that the raiding tests will have instant 60s to make up for the low population of the beta. So that way we can just quickly just make instant 60s on whichever realm's the most populous. So that way we can just go straight into, you know, raiding instead of wasting our time like trying to find a small amount of 40 people at level 60 really. But that's my thoughts at least. I don't know what it's going to be like, and that's it. That's how I feel about the changes, and now that I've playtested, I will see how the next development notes will be. Thank you for watching.